in a dramatic turn of events, where recent events in Tanzania have raised serious questions about the state of democracy, political freedom, and human rights. Protests have broken out amid elections in which the main opposition voices have been silenced. Tanzania, a country in East Africa, long dominated by the ruling party Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM, since independence, is facing one of its most contentious elections in decades. The incumbent president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, is seeking a fresh mandate while many say the playing field is far from level. From internet going off in various regions due to protests, things are turning seriously worse for the Iron Lady with an iron fist. In the months leading up to the vote, opposition parties' leaders have been arrested, disqualified, or intimidated, creating a political environment marked by fear and protest. This includes the country's main opposition party, Chama cha Democracia na Maendeleo, CHADEMA, who was banned from contesting the election after being accused of refusing to sign a mandatory code of conduct. Meanwhile, opposition leader Tundu Lissu is in detention facing treason charges, an act the government says is lawful, but critics say is politically motivated. From Election Day, 29 October 2025, protests just erupted in the commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, and other cities. Demonstrators are on the streets, blocking roads, lighting fires, and clashing with security forces. In response, the government declares a curfew in Dar es Salaam and deploying military forces to buttress police presence. Security forces using tear gas and carrying out arrests. Polling stations were reportedly nearly empty in parts of the city. Turnout was markedly low. According to human rights groups, there were instances of enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, and extrajudicial killings of opposition supporters and critics in the lead-up to the vote, creating what they call a climate of fear. Why even the internet connectivity be disrupted nationwide? Angry protesters become furious. In order to hinder communication, monitoring, and media coverage of the events, protesters are not threatened by all these instances, as they continue to show their dissatisfaction against a leader who hasn't shown the true structure of Tanzania's political philosophy that depends on democratic elections. When major opposition parties are excluded and key leaders are detained or silenced, the meaning of election comes into question. Many in Tanzania and abroad say the contest is less of a competition and more of a consolidation of power. Tell us, are you a dictator or leader of Tanzania? That is what is all over the protesters' minds. Arrests on treason charges, enforced disappearances, and limited press freedom undermine the notion of fair treatment under law. For instance, Amnesty International has called for investigations into reported use of lethal force against protesters. As one of East Africa's more stable countries, what happens in Tanzania reverberates across the region, in terms of governance, foreign aid, diplomatic norms, and the example set for opposition politics. Low turnout and visible unrest may erode citizens' confidence in the process, potentially disillusioning young people and dissuading civic engagement. Indeed, a growing number of young people across Africa are vocalizing their frustration with authoritarian leaders and advocating for democratic change. This activism is driven by grievances over poor economic conditions, lack of opportunity, and systemic corruption, and is being powered by the innovative use of digital tools. This is why even in Tanzania, the internet had to go off to limit the use of the internet in spreading the situation furthermore. Young Africans are pushing back against autocratic rule and persistent dissatisfaction with the status quo. We are going to mobilize people from the streets and their homes. We need to rescue the situation because some are hesitating. An official from the ruling party in Temeke district, and from protesters. We want our country back. A chant being heard on the streets of Dar es Salaam. Opposition members say, There is no election in Tanzania. It is a coronation, one senior opposition official said. Expressions like these speak of frustration, marginalization, and a sense that the political system no longer offers a genuine choice. The government and the ruling party defend the process. President Samia Suluhu Hassan and her CCM party point to their record on infrastructure stability and development. They argue that the Electoral Commission is operating within the law and that arrests and disqualifications are legal responses to alleged rule violations. Then, if you are confident that your party has done marvelous things, why not let citizens decide freely, as you suggest with the election, that you and your party have an edge over the rest? Why then even fear to let everything move smoothly? These are the harsh questions protesters are carrying with them heavily on their minds. Critics say that the enforcement of these rules is selectively applied and that legal mechanisms are being used to sideline opponents rather than ensure fairness. For example, CHADEMA's disqualification hinged on its failure to sign a code of conduct, a requirement that critics say was itself unfairly enforced. As the situation unfolds, several questions remain. Will independent investigations into reported abuses and violence be conducted? For example, human rights groups demand accountability for deaths during the protests. Again, what role will internet disruptions and media restrictions have on transparency? Also, how will ordinary Tanzanians, particularly young people and first-time voters, respond to the environment of intimidation and low turnout? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the future of opposition politics and civic space in Tanzania? Tanzania's current moment is one of high tension. On the one hand, there is a government seeking to maintain its dominance and push a development agenda. On the other, a citizenry and opposition squeezed by rules, detentions, and fear. The protests are more than just a reaction to a single election. They reflect deeper questions about political voice, accountability, and rights in Tanzania.